Cisco show, ladies and gentlemen. Don't touch that dial. We got a great show here. We're going to talk about the Civil War, okay? And our friend here belongs to a group that keep history. You know what did President Truman say? Truman said, "What's new? The history we haven't read." Well, you're not going to have to read anything. You're going to listen, and we're going to come up with some stuff maybe you wasn't aware of that, about the struggle for slavery and the whole bit as far as the Civil War. So, but the most important thing, we're going to talk about the soldiers and what they went through, the type of uniforms and different things. That, and my friend here is a judge, a retired judge from the Montgomery County Common Pleas Court, good friend of mine. For many years, when I was a policeman in Norristown, I knew him. When I was a county detective, I knew him. And he's a retired judge now, and he just enjoys going around doing different demonstrations and all. So I'm very happy to have you and welcome. And now I'm going to allow you to say your own name. All right.
My name is Maurino J. Rossinice. I've been a judge in Montgomery County for 20 and a half years, and I just retired at the end of last year. So I'm kind of enjoying retired life at this point.
Right.
But as Hank indicated, you and I go back to when I was a public defender in juvenile,
right.
And you were the juvenile officer in Norristown. I don't want to say how many years ago that was. That was some time ago.
But that, you see a lot of people today say, "Oh, I remember you when you were a policeman," and that people most likely come up to you, when you were handling juvenile cases, and we all survived, But, now, I have to give you credit to take the time, and I know you had a group at the courthouse one time, it must have been 20, 30 fellas, all dressed in uniform. Now, one thing, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't bring the gun in. We didn't want to bring a gun into the school and a big sword. So that's part of the equipment, okay, that the soldiers used. Okay, so tell me, what kind of group do you belong to, and why you do this?
Okay, I belong to a group that's called the North-South Skirmish Association, and what we do, we're a group of shooters. We're not reenactors. So we don't get dressed up and go sit out in tents like the Boy Scouts or anything like that. Just as an offshoot, every year out at Pennypacker Mills, the county puts on a Civil War reenactment.
Okay, that's what I was thinking of.
And those fellows are what you call reenactors, and they'll sit there and so forth. The North-South skirmishers are basically shooters. We actually have original or replica guns that we fire at targets. We don't fire at each other.
Right.
But we fire at targets, and we fire for score. So, for example, my unit...
It's a competition between states?
Well, it's a competition between different groups, or maybe between states.
Okay, yeah.
But in the North-South Skirmish Association, we have federal groups, and we also have Confederate groups.
Oh, okay.
So we may be shooting against each other there.
Be careful, somebody don't start the...
But typically you'll have eight member groups on the line.
Shooting.
So you'll have 64 people on the line, and they're all shooting at once, and they're all shooting black powder.
Yeah, so is that the gun where you have to put the powder in?
Correct, correct. I'll show you in a little bit
right.
some of the stuff that I brought with me and give some explanations for it.
Right.
But that's basically the group that I belong to, it's fun.
What do you travel? Now, you say you go down here for that.
Yeah.
Is there any other, you go different, that your group come into schools or anything and talk about it, or get anything educational?
We don't do that as a group. I have done it on my own. I've spoken to historical societies, historical groups, and I've when my kids were in high school, I used to go to the high schools and help out the history teachers to when they got to the Civil War.
Now, all right, the uniform. Now, the uniform you have on, you come in. Now, I see that's a pretty heavy.
Yeah,
wool. Pretty heavy, right?
Yeah.
And then you got what's that emblem?
All right, this emblem is a Pennsylvania emblem. Now, depending upon what unit you're with. Now, my unit is the 1st Pennsylvania Artillery. Okay. And on my kepi here, I have the designation. Now, the 1st is the battalion, 1st Battalion,
right.
Pennsylvania, and the crossed cannons means artillery, Company B.
Company B.
All right,
Okay.
the 1st Battalion, Pennsylvania Artillery Company B, was in Gettysburg.
Lot of history there.
Yeah, documented that they were in Gettysburg. Now this is what they call a kepi. It's a very short hat.
What was that, a ceremonial or a...
No, this is what they wore every day, and it was basically part of the uniform. And then later, towards the end of the war, they started doctoring it up with the various badges and stuff. Actually, towards the end of the war, they started to have the signs for their various corps, and you see that in today's uniform with the shoulder patches. So you'll have like the 101st Airborne, for example, the Screaming Eagle, which they has the eagle on their shoulder. So this is where it started in the Civil War. Now I brought another.
Let me see that hat.
Yes.
You don't mind if I put it on? See
Absolutely
what I look like?
not. Absolutely not.
What do I look like in this kind of hat?
You look like an old veteran.
Whoa.
But I brought another hat with me, and this, what they call a forage cap.
A what?
Forage cap or a bummer's cap, right? And I'll show you why in a minute. This is kind of what it looks like when it's worn.
Well, that's before they put this emblem on there.
Yeah. This is without the emblem. So this is what they call a forager's or bummer's hat. Now the reason why they call that is because you can see how big it is. You can put about 24 eggs in there.
Wow.
All right, so when the soldiers would forage, that means they would go around and get tomatoes and eggs and
go into
things of this nature. They would use their hats to hold the stuff and bring it back. All right, now it's also called a bummer's hat because in any army, I don't care from Rome all the way up to the present day, there are certain members of that army that'll just go off on their own and they'll pillage and steal things and what have you.
Survive,
in the Civil War, they called those folks bummers.
What do they call them?
Bummers.
Bummers.
Like bums.
Like a bum.
All right, and so because these hats were so nice that you could put a lot of things in them, they call them bummers hats or bummers caps. So anyhow, they're two of the things. What I'm geared up for here, I guess.
What? Don't move too much because you're hooked up.
Okay. Show you a little bit. This is basically what the Union Army would wear late 1863, early 1864 until the end of the war. Prior to this, all of the Army were comprised of state militias. Right, so New Jersey would have blue uniforms, Pennsylvania would have green uniforms, somebody else would have orange uniforms. Up in New York, they used to love zouaves, which had real baggy pants and things and so forth. So there was no uniformity. Now, towards the end, 1863, late 1863 into 1864, and towards the end of the war, they started to get more official uniforms, right?
Uniform, right.
Yeah, more uniform for the uniforms. And the reason was the old uniforms played out. They were done. They got holes and they were no good. They threw them away.
The moth,
and they got these guys. Exactly. The moths got them and they got ripped and whatever. So this is basically it.
That was the blue pants. They had a combination,
correct.
Right?
Yeah, the blue pants, robin's egg blue pants, and the navy blue. They call this a sack coat. Right, it's a 4-button sack
It's almost like the Eisenhower coat during the Second World
War.
War.
Very similar.
The waist.
Very similar. Right. Yeah, very similar. Right now, on top of that, the first thing and probably the most important thing for the soldiers is cartridge pouch. Right.
What did they carry there?
This is where they carried their cartridges. Right.
The bullets.
And their bullets. Now, let me sit down for a second and I'll show you a couple of these things. These are replica.
That's what comes
Right.
out.
These are replica bullets.
Right.
They're not original. In fact, these are cast from a mold where they took the original markings from the mold and they made a new mold. So I casted these myself. And as you can see, there is a
pocket.
A pocket
Right.
in
That's
there.
The powder.
Right now, this is what they call a mini ball, and it was invented by a Frenchman named Minet, and of course the Americans called it mini. So it doesn't mean that it was little. It was yeah. It was they couldn't
Italian
pronounce
to be Manuk.
right. They couldn't pronounce the guy's name correctly. Now, the reason why this is important is that during the Civil War, both sides used what they call rifle muskets. All right, and that means that the bore was rifled. Now, why is this important? It's important because if you have a smooth bore, which they did in the Revolutionary War, for example, you could shoot and it might be effective for 100 yards or so, right? Once you have a rifle, you can shoot 600, 700 yards, 800 yards and be effective. Now, the problem, they had rifles in existence since the Revolutionary War,
put powder in them.
but they were so hard to load because you had to put the powder in, then you had to put a patch, then you had to put the ball in the patch and press it down and so forth. And if it was a flintlock, you had to prime it, you had to pull the flint back and so forth. Now, what made this so effective is that this bullet is undersized. It's thinner than the bore of the musket.
Right.
Right? So, and you don't need a patch to get it in. So this thing you could push right down, no problem.
Right.
Right? And you didn't need a patch. Now, what made it effective was once the black powder exploded, this skirt
Only
would
one way
expand.
to go.
Would expand, and it would take the rifling of the rifle barrel, and as a result, you could
pick up more speed.
Exactly, and now you can shoot effectively aimed 600, 700 yards, right? And the infantry tactics didn't keep up with this because the infantry tactics were to get close, fire your volleys,
see the whites of their eyes.
Exactly, and then run in a charge with your bayonet. So you're basically still a Roman soldier with his lance, right? Because the bayonet's nothing but a spear. So the problem is, anybody can run 100 yards. I think you and I could run 100 yards, but I don't think you and I could run 600 yards.
Not now.
I don't think anybody could run 600 yards, even if they're in shape. And then at the end of 600 yards, after running, and dodging bullets and whatever, then have the power to do something. So that's why the Civil War had so many casualties, because these poor fellows were getting shot 500, 600, 700 yards
get them
away.
back to the hospital fast enough.
Correct. Correct. So that was one.
The bayonet, but the bayonet was a lot of, one-on-one.
Oh yeah. No question about that. There were a substantial number of bayonet wounds in the Civil War, much more so than any later wars.
However, I remember the training when I was in the Army, the bayonet get boom.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Oh my God.
But as time went on and as armies progressed and as tactics progressed and as firepower progressed, the bayonet became less and less important. But in the Civil War, it was still important. There was a substantial number of battle casualties with the bayonet.
Now, what else? You got another white bag. What's in the
right.
white bag? You got any,
Let me
any
do a little
hoagies
bit.
or Zeps in there?
No hoagies or Zeps. First of all, this is a canteen.
Oh, that's the canteen.
All right, it has a cork top, and
sure they put a little wine in there. We got cork top.
Put wine, whatever. And it's made out of metal, and it has a cloth backing on it. Now, what they would do is wet this cloth, and as the water evaporated from the cloth, it would keep the inside water a little cool by virtue of evaporation. So that's why it's covered in cloth. Now this is what they call a haversack. This is basically what your ordinary soldier would carry his necessities in. I have a mucket here. It's a cup. And these Civil War soldiers loved coffee. And
they used to use years ago baseball players,
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
They call it a pot,
Yeah, they call it a mucket. Right. And what they would do is the Civil War soldiers loved coffee. They loved coffee. It was one of their favorite things. So what they would do with a metal cup like this, if they stopped even for 15 minutes, somebody would be gathering up little sticks and stuff, start a little fire, take some water out of his canteen, and put some coffee in there and boil it. In fact, the infantrymen by the other branches of the service, the cavalry and in the artillery during the Civil War, they called them coffee boilers. That was their nickname.
Coffee.
Coffee boilers.
Oh, yeah?
Right, because if they stopped
boilers.
if they stopped for 10 minutes, they would sit down and make coffee. Now, the haversack, when the war first started, 1861 and so forth, as I said, everybody was militia. They had these backpacks, and the backpacks would have two shoulder straps that come over here, and then they'd have straps that go across the chest to hold it on. And that's what they kept their necessities in. However, as time went on, these guys found that it's a pain in the neck. If you wanted to get, you know, your pipe and your tobacco as you're marching
then, right?
or whatever, if you wanted to get a piece of hardtack, if you wanted to get a piece of meat, I got it here.
Yeah,
I'll show it to you in a minute.
Okay.
Right? Then you would have to take this off, go inside and so forth. So now they started picking these guys up, and whatever they needed went here, extra pair of socks.
Oh, okay.
Sewing utensils, and so forth. Now, you brought up hardtack. I have some bags here. This bag has coffee beans in it. And the reason why I carry coffee beans is because the United States government, for fear that the companies would adulterate ground coffee for their troops, they bought coffee by the bean, and they gave it to their troops by the bean.
By the bean?
By the bean.
Would they grind it?
Well, what would happen is that the troops would get a little muslin sack like this.
After it was ground?
Well, and they would get this from the artillery. They used to keep their powder charges in these muslin sacks. So they were all over the battlefield.
They would keep the powder in there, and then they put the beans in there too?
After they used it.
Their stomach would blow up.
Nah, they used the powder, and then they threw the sacks away, and the soldiers would come and pick up the sacks because you could put stuff in it. Now, what they would do is they get the beans, put them inside this bag, get their rifle, put it on top of a rock or something, and beat it with the rifle butt, and that would crush all of the coffee. Now, they would then get their supply of sugar. They were each given, you know, half a cup of sugar or whatever. Right. They would throw that inside the bag, mix it all up. So when they stopped for coffee, they put the water in, spoon out how many spoons they wanted of coffee. It already had the sugar in it. Waited till it boiled, and then drink it.
Oh my God!
Right?
In other words, it's all, no percolator or anything.
No. So that's
why. And when them guys, and then they boom, you see them spit.
Exactly.
And roll it down
Yeah. Well, also.
And they all have beards, and their beard was all.
Exactly. Now, also, as you know, coffee has a stimulating characteristic to it. So if they were marching, they were starting to get a little tired, they'd just take a couple of beans and chew it to get the stimulation from it. Bag of tobacco, you know, you always.
That was tobacco.
Yeah,
right?
You always wanted your pipe. Now.
That was their supply they carried with them.
Exactly.
That was more important than anything, I believe.
You got it.
The coffee, the tobacco.
You got
and the
it.
Gunpowder.
Now you talked about hardtack.
Okay, hardtack.
This is hardtack.
Oh my God.
All right.
Is that bread?
It's a cracker.
Oh.
You could hammer nails with it.
And well, how do they soften it?
I'll tell you. They were given 6 to 8 crackers a day. They called these things crackers.
And
hardtack. They were given 6 to 8 crackers a day. And this was marching rations. Marching rations, 6 to 8 crackers, and they would give you a piece of salt pork, maybe about this big, or a piece of bacon, or a piece of salt beef about that big. That was your marching rations, right? So what they would do, if they were boiling coffee, they'd bust these up into pieces, throw it inside the coffee, let it soften up, and then spoon it out, okay? Or
so like Dunkin' Donuts.
Correct. Or if they had time to sit down and they had time to fry their bacon and stuff, they'd fry their bacon and wait till all the fat had been rendered from the bacon. Then they'd stick this inside there and let it suck up the fat, and then they would eat it. It would be softened up a bit.
Okay.
They'd also
get the flavor.
Correct. They would also get water sometimes and just throw a handful of these in the water. and let them soften up a bit and then just
You
eat them.
think Dunkin' Donuts got that idea from him?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Right now, also in here, you would have your mess kit. You would have your plate.
They give 'em a plate.
Typically, a metal plate. You would it wouldn't be as clean and pristine as this one is. It would be all scraped up and what have you. After you've been in combat for a while, and how you wash your plate, you get a little handful of sand, wash it off, squish it around in the creek a little bit, and that's it. Clean enough for them.
Everything, but the water was pure then.
One would hope.
Well, I mean, the streams were clear.
Better than they are today, that's for sure.
Now we got a lot of pollution, you know.
Now this is a period piece.
Combination?
Combination utensil kit. This was a knife.
They had them in days?
Correct.
That's pretty fancy for...
This was a knife, and of course this one's not sharp, but you could sharpen it so you could...
That's good to keep in the car when you
cut meat and so
on
forth.
the side of the road.
Right, and then it had a fork on one side and a spoon on the other. So when you stop to boil, when you stop to boil your coffee, you would get your spoon.
This is okay, good.
This would go in like this, and everything fits together.
All right. In other words, this comes out.
Yeah.
And this is the knife.
Yeah.
This is the fork, and this is the spoon.
Correct.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
I should keep one in my car, so when I get, you know.
You can only get them from...
Harry Truman, what's new? The history we haven't read.
That's right. Now, this haversack, like I said...
Where'd that haversack, where'd that come from? The guy's name?
Not quite sure. I'm pretty sure it's some guy's name,
some guy's name, I guess.
Don't quote me on that one.
Yeah.
But in any event, early in the war, these
Wait a minute. Happy sack?
Haversack.
Oh, I was going to say it's happy sack because you got a lot of stuff in there.
So, again, you would have your sewing kit in there, your needles, your thread, whatever.
Right.
You would have your toothbrush, you would have your pipe, harmonica. A lot of guys played the harmonica.
Yeah, that's right.
Things of this nature. That's what you would carry. This is your personal kit. Your writing paper. You would have your writing paper, your envelopes, your pencil, your pen, ink, if you had any. That's what you kept in the haversack.
Backpack now. They call this as...
Exactly. Now, the reason why they got away from the backpack, like I said, if you're on a march and you're walking, you want to eat a handful of coffee beans, you got to take your pack off and this and that. Right. This way you just reach in, pick it up, and you eat it.
Right.
Also, early in the war, they had bought the backpacks and the haversacks, which were tarred. They soaked them in liquid tar, right? So they were black, and the reason for that was that they wanted to keep these things waterproof. Okay, so the tar
and also at night it wouldn't stand out. Maybe the enemy.
Well, maybe that too, but the main idea was to be waterproof,
insulated.
Correct. Now, what they found out, what the soldiers found out, was that especially down south, most of the war took place below the Mason-Dixon line. Right. And it was hot down there, so the tar would melt, and they get it all over their clothes or whatever. God. So little by little, they got away.
Somebody come on and throw some feathers on it. You're tarred and feathered.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But what they would do, they would go to these cotton muslin haversacks. Okay, they weren't waterproof, but you know, you got to. They were better than having
the back.
Yeah, the backfill thing. Now. Other utensils that they had, a lot of times you'd find canteens all over the place, especially after a battle.
Right.
So what they do is break these in half. They would either get a knife and, because how the canteen is made is two metal discs are put together.
Like this.
Correct.
Yeah.
Are put together and then they're soldered.
Right.
So they either just throw it in the fire and wait till the solder would melt, and then they'd have two halves.
Yeah.
Or they would put a charge in there. They put a charge of black powder in there and blow it, and rip it apart. Or they'd open it up and use a knife or something like that. Now the reason they would then use the half of that as a frying pan.
Oh, okay.
Right. Okay. So you have this metal thing here. So they jam a piece of wood in there as a handle or baling wire or something like that, and they would use a canteen half as a frying pan.
Yeah.
Or a plate. Now, some guys use them as plates. One half they use for a frying pan, the other half they use for a plate.
The Valley Forge it's different than.
Correct.
Had nothing to do with the Civil War.
No,
Right.
no, that was the Revolutionary
right,
War.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but they had a lot of things
Now,
in common.
what are some of the hardships? We only got a couple more minutes going. What are some hardships that they went through?
One of the big hardships was disease.
Yeah.
They would get dysentery because down south, when you have a whole lot of men together, or people together for that matter, and who's discharging their waste and whatever gets into the water, they drink the water, and the next thing you know,
typhoid and everything else.
Correct.
Right.
So that outside of battlefield casualties, the biggest killer,
I guess
in
disease
the
killed
war
more. Yeah.
was the disease.
I guess that's almost as true here because say a lot of wars in Europe,
Yeah.
they're won and lost because of the weather.
Correct.
The weather won more wars than the bullets.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you know what? The half hour is over. I got a signal that the half hour is over. I got to bring you back. I mean, we got a lot more to talk about.
Okay.
And
I'll
Judge,
be happy to come.
You're retired, but you're still a judge to me, right?
Okay.
And
My
it's a
pleasure.
Pleasure.
My
And,
pleasure.
Next time we'll have bring 4 or 5 more guys there. Maybe we'll have a little.
We'll have a little
regimental
skirmish.
Style there. Right. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for allowing us to come in to your home. And my good friend here, let's have a little. What do you say in Italian?
Salute, chi beve.
Salute to your health.
Who brought the pizza?